Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our channel. This is our 47th Tawheed Halaqah. So we are going to the Professor's Kitab At Tawheed, Volume 2. The date is the 1st of September 2025. We are on page 482 of Volume 2. We are halfway down the section that starts the infamous Athar attributed to Ibn Abbas in the chapter on how did mankind leave Tawheed originally. The infamous Athar attributed to Ibn Abbas. The Athar narrative is to be found in the Sahih of al-Bukhari, the wording in full as follows. Ibrahim ibn Musa narrated to us, Hisham reported to us from Ibn Jurayj, Ata said from Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, all the Awthan which were worshipped by the people of Noah were worshipped by the Arabs later on. Regarding Wad, it was worshipped by the tribe of Kalb at Dumat
al-Jandal. That's in Jordan now. No, it's not Saudi Arabia. In the battles between inside Jordan. But essentially the area where the battle of in which Ja'far were martyred, Mu'tah. That's the place around that. Dumat al-Jandal. Yeah, that's there. Its name now is Duma. It's well known, Dumat al-Jandal.
Suwa was the tribe of Hudayl,
Hudayl, yeah.
Hudayl, okay. Yaghuth to the tribe of Murad.
That's all in Yemen, yeah. Carry on, while you're stuck.
I just went to tribe of Murad, then to Bani Qutayf al-Jurf near Sabah. Ya'uq was to Hamdan, and Nasr was for the Himyar, the branch of Dhil Qalla. The names were of righteous men from the people of Noah. When they died, Shaitan whispered to their people, encouraging them to set up monuments in their councils where they used to sit and deliberate, and they called them by their names, but they were not worshipped until after those people had died, and knowledge of such was forgotten. It is also cited in Akhbar Makkah by al-Faqihi with the channel from Muhammad
Faqihi, like Faqihi, the fruit seller.
Faqihi, with the channel from Muhammad ibn Thawr from Ata from Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, the wording matching that of al-Bukhari. However, the following appears in the tafsir of Abdul Razak. Abdul Razak from Ma'mar from Qatada concerning where he the Almighty says, do not renounce your gods, do not renounce Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq, or Nasr.
That's the ayah we discussed last time, yeah.
He said, therefore, he said they were the gods worshipped by the people of Noah. Nuh. Thereafter, the Arabs worshipped them. Wad was at Qulayb in Dumat al-Jundal.
Don't bother about which tribes they are. That's secondary. But as you see, another point of view. They were idols of them. So the narration of Abbas claims that he thought they are pious people, and later they elevated the rank of divinity. And Qatada, based on other sources, Qatada is not a Sahabi. The same applies with Abbas. Even Sahabi doesn't matter. Neither of them were living at the time of Nuh, nor he has anything reported from the Messenger of Allah, which we can regard as infallible. Qatada's point of view, no. They were worshipped. They were the part of the idol set for the people of Noah. Okay? So two contradicting points of view.
Note that here that Qatada did not provide a further addition. Thereafter, in his tafsir, Abdul Razak immediately followed it up with from Ibn Jurayj, from Ata al-Khurasani, from Ibn Abbas, reporting similar to it, except that he said all the Awthan, idols, which were worshipped by the people of Noah, were worshipped by the Arabs later on. Then he mentioned similar to the hadith of Qatada.
Yeah.
Identifying the narrator Ata as being Ata al-Khurasani is also recorded in al-Jamah al-Sahihain. It is reported by
al-Jamah bayn al-Sahihain. Let's join Bukhari and Muslim in one composite work.
Is it called Jamah bayn al-Sahihain or Jamah al-Sahihain?
Jamah al-Sahihain or Jamah bayn al-Sahihain. You can both do.
It is reported by Abu Mas'ud in the biography of Ata ibn Rabah. Thereafter, he said Hajjaj ibn Muhammad and Abdul Razak narrated it from Ibn Jurayj. They said from Ata al-Khurasani, it is mentioned by Abu Bakr al-Burqani and from al-Ismaili, mentioning about that, and it is narrated from Ali ibn al-Madini, and Allah knows best.
Yeah. The point is to stress just quickly for those who don't have a hadith background. In some narrations, it says Jurayj from Ata, from Ibn Abbas. People usually say Ibn Jurayj said from Ata, meaning his Sheikh Ata ibn Abi Rabah, who was a student of Ibn Abbas, very acquainted with Ibn Abbas. And Ibn Jurayj is the, let me look this guy. Second. And this chain will be reliable as a thiqa chain, yeah. But many other narrations specify that it's actually from Ibn Jurayj from Ata al-Khurasani. The problem with that is that when Ibn Jurayj say from, Ibn Jurayj is known to have tadlis, except if he knows from Ata ibn Abi Rabah, because he was a student for Ata ibn Abi Rabah over 20 years or 30 years or something like that. So it's possible that between him and Ata al-Khurasani is someone else there, and he drops it. That's a possibility because he is mudallis in this respect, and that's well known, well established. Secondly, Ata al-Khurasani would, taking all evidences into consideration, most likely did not meet Ibn Abbas or hear from him. He narrates through other channels, so it's not a connected chain. And the correct point of view, it is Ata al-Khurasani. Yeah.
The truth behind this Athar narrative is that it is not established as being from Ibn Abbas because it is interrupted in two places. Al-Bukhari reports it only with the forename given Ata without further attribution. Abdul Razak reports this Athar in his tafsir with an explicit attribution, stating it is Ata al-Khurasani from Ibn Abbas. The majority of scholars concur that Al-Bukhari errs here, thinking that the Ata is Ata ibn Abi Rabah.
Otherwise, he would not brought it out because he doesn't have anything going through Ata al-Khurasani. No.
In fact, the correct viewpoint is that it is Ata al-Khurasani, as it is recorded in the Musannaf of Abdul Razak. Hajjaj ibn Muhammad al-Awar followed suit.
The one ayat.
Awar followed suit in this, and both of them firmly established by the judge of Sana'a, Hisham ibn Yusuf al-Abnawi ibn Jurayj. It should be noted that the narrator Hisham ibn Yusuf clarifies that the Ata is Ata al-Khurasani, which is confirmed by what the Imam Ali ibn al-Madini said in al-Ilal. And this is from the book. I heard Hisham ibn Yusuf ibn Jurayj said to me, I asked Ata about the tafsir from al-Baqarah and al-Imran. So he said, spare me from this. Hisham said, it was after when he said Ata from Ibn Abbas, he said al-Khurasani. Hisham said, we wrote what we wrote, then tired. Ali said, by we wrote what we wrote, meaning that he is Ata al-Khurasani. Ali ibn al-Madini said, rather, I wrote this story because Muhammad ibn Thawr used to make it as Ata from Ibn Abbas. So those who transmitted it thought it was referring to Ata ibn Abi Rabah.
So is a way of abridging Muhammad ibn Thawr or whatever problem Muhammad has. It is most likely, as I said, mistake. But even if it is not established with certainty with the Ata al-Khurasani, the doubt that is this or this one, we have to take the side of this connection. The side of the weaker chain, because we should not make a chain stronger than it is unless we are forced to. That's the opposite in the other direction. Yeah, good.
To err on the side of caution.
Of course.
Unless you have supporting evidences, like Hassan, etc., reinforcing it or something. It can be found in the seminal work of Tufat al-Ashraf bil-Ma'rifatul Atraf.
Al-Atraf, by the Mizzi,
as well as Tahdib At Tawheed, together with many other references too. In actuality, the blame for this doesn't fall upon Imam Ibn Jurayj or al-Bukhari. It actually lies with Hisham ibn Yusuf and his companions, from among them Muhammad ibn Thawr. They were negligent in this matter with a reluctance to put the full proper attribution of Ata al-Khurasani. Instead, it was attributed to just Ata. It is wajib to provide the full attribution, and it should have been recorded when dictating it. Otherwise, it is tadlis ashiyukh, misrepresentation of scholars,
Sheikh.
be that intentional or otherwise.
Mhm.
Ata al-Khurasani did not hear from Ibn Abbas. Moreover, Ibn Jurayj did not hear tafsir from Ata al-Khurasani. Rather, he read it from a book by way of his son, Uthman ibn Ata, and looked at it. From this, Ibn Jurayj did not see anything untoward with it by saying, أخبرني في مناولة.
Ibn Jurayj used the word أخبرني for a book. That was the custom later in the 3rd century onward. They use أخبرني for taking from a book, حدثني from taking orally from the Sheikh or reading to the Sheikh. At that time, Ibn Jurayj said أخبرني, he say it for taking from book and things like that. He was liberal with the word أخبرني. In his generation, it was not like that. So that's a specific speciality of Ibn Jurayj actually.
Salih ibn Ahmad Hanbal mentioned in al-Ilal from Ali ibn al-Madini. He said, I asked Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qahtan about the hadith of
Al-Qattan, the cotton maker.
Qahtan. Qattan, about the hadith of Ibn Jurayj from Ata al-Khurasani. So he said da'if, weak, even though he would say akhbarana, reported to us. He said, yet it is nothing. It is a book that is handed to him.
Yeah.
In fact,
for the classics, a book is not an authority. You have the Sheikh have to read you because you are not certain how things are pronounced. Is that really the handwriting of the Sheikh? All of these precautions, they are very strict in that. And history has shown that really just getting from a book and copying is not enough. See the book, the scripture of the Jews and Christian and so on is absolute miss by copying, playing games, just by the copying itself. Okay, carry on.
In fact, I would argue it is far worse than that. It was actually handed to him by his son, Uthman ibn Ata al-Khurasani, and he speaks in relation to that, but he is not considered thiqa or qawi. It cannot be
the son of Ata al-Khurasani, Uthman, is weak, is even worse. Ata al-Sam is not weak, but al-Khurasani. But the problem, he does not meet Ibn Abbas, and he does irsal. But otherwise, he's reliable and so on. But his son is even worse in that sense. So doubly weak. Is doubly weak.
It cannot be ascertained whether he has tampered with the book, neither do we know
that's the reason.
The level of organization or arrangement that it was in, let alone its formatting, criteria, or even punctuation marks. Yet this is the very same Ata ibn Abi Muslim al-Khurasani, may Allah have mercy upon him, that was known to be on jihad, virtues, and worship. Even with that, he is not considered to be among the scholars known for being diligent or having precision. He has irsal and tadlis, and this is maqtu. Was maqtu as the definition?
It's not connected. It looks connected, it's not connected. It's disconnected.
Scholars are agreed upon his ranking and status. It is also said of him that he conceals defects and may on occasion deceive. So kind of tadlis,
yeah?
Does that so that downgrades him in reliability then? Not completely,
but because it's not clear what is how it is done and so on. So that, but otherwise, for example, he could hear from someone he trusts and so on through this one to Ibn Abbas, or take a book from this someone, but doesn't specify that person and that it was a book. Open the question. Maybe the book is tampered with. Maybe he doesn't know the handwriting. That the guy is not. And many places there is tasheef, changing in words by changing the dots. And the Arabic language is more prone to tasheef than the European language, things like that. So that's one of the reasons for that. But anyway, still he's a good man, Ata al-Khurasani, not his son. So carry on.
Ibn Hajar's objections. Al-Hafiz claimed that this hadith is specific to him, and another isnad by itself, according to al-Bukhari, could possibly be attributed to Ata ibn Abi Rabah. This is outlined in Al-Tahdhib in response to the argument made by Al-Mizzi. I say the author presents this from the context that the Ata, which is mentioned in these two hadith, is Al-Khurasani. That there was wahan, delusion, which took place in the attribution of Al-Bukhari regarding their sourcing. Because Ata al-Khurasani did not hear from Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Jurayj did not hear the tafsir from Ata al-Khurasani.
Mhm.
Hence, the two hadith are each munqati in two places, and al-Bukhari sourced it upon the assumption that Ata mentioned with was Ata ibn
Abi Rabah,
Abi
Abi
Rabah.
Rabah. Mm.
Yet it is not conclusive that al-Bukhari included them on the basis of Ata al-Khurasani. It is a doubtful matter. There is no hindrance to the possibility that Ibn Jurayd heard the two hadith from Ata ibn Abi Rabah in a context different from that of tafsir, excluding them from his tafsir. If their
Could be,
veracity,
but this is all speculation. Anyway, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar is known to be try to defend al-Bukhari. All the later one, they almost for them Bukhari is also like an idol. That's a problem. But there are many places where Bukhari committed errors. That's one of them, which is natural. It's not like any human beings. There's a huge amount of snad, huge amounts of cross references and so on. No human being. Nowadays, we can do much more because of the computers and so on. At that time, it was bordering on impossibility. Okay.
an exceptional ability to be able to do
Yeah.
it. If their veracity in the tafsir of Ata al-Khurasani can be established, it doesn't prevent them from being also being assigned to Ata ibn Abi Rabah. This is clear, but it is required. It is not appropriate to judge al-Bukhari based upon possibilities, since the cause of the confusion is towards his Sheikh Ali ibn al-Madini. If it is confirmed that the editor was aware of this cause, if not the case, he would have provided a statement from the copy in his tafsir, not specifically to just these two hadith. And Allah knows best, particularly given that al-Bukhari had mentioned Ata al-Khurasani in al-Du'afa.
Yeah.
In response to this, we would argue that these are nothing but fallacies born of stubbornness. Al-Hafiz al-Mizzi made mention of the two hadith in the entry for Ata al-Khurasani in Tahdhib al-Kamal because they are definitely attributed to him. Moreover, it is also stated that al-Bukhari included them based upon his belief that they were stemming from Ata ibn Abi Rabah.
Yeah, mistaken in that belief. That's simple. No need for Hafiz to fight and rally and all these things. But that's how some narrator or books becoming idolized excessively. That's it.
Thus what Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar has outlined doesn't provide any compelling evidence to rebut this matter. Moreover, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar errs when he says that there is a possibility that Ibn Jurayj heard the two narrations in a different context or subject to that of tafsir from Ata ibn Abi Rabah. To respond directly to this, yet it is not logically impossible, but it misses the most critical point. Did it actually happen? This is a matter of narration, which can only be established by way of a reliable narrative that is worthy of consideration.
Exactly. That is possible, rationally possible. Yes, maybe I've read the hadith from 10 people. That's all possible. But what's the relevant? What we have in front of us? What did really happen? That needs documentation, certification, witnesses, not just the mere possibility. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's speculation.
Otherwise, it's undermining the necessity of reason. History is not taken by the possibility, because many events in history look extremely possible and they really happened. We have tawatur for that, and others look very remote and so on, but you can establish that they didn't happen and things like that. Yeah.
So where is that narration? It is absent. It doesn't exist. Compounding this is the testimony of Hisham ibn Yusuf. He said that what Ibn Jurayd had from Ata ibn Abi Rabah in terms of tafsir was limited to that of Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 and Ali Imran at the most, which is what the faqih
so Hisham ibn Yusuf was a student of Ibn Jurayd. Say Musa ibn Jurayd told him Ata ibn Rabah was not a great mufassir, has not very much in tafsir, but all I have from him in tafsir is Al-Baqarah and Al-Surah, and only part of the Baqarah. So this is far away from Baqarah anyway. It cannot be from Ata by the explicit information of Ibn Jurayd. Concerning memory and comprehensive knowledge, Ibn Jurayd is nobody can outrun him. Enormous. So if you tell you I took from Ata ibn Abi Rabah only tafsir of these two surah, you can rely on that and hold it to the iron fist. So all of that is clear. Just I go in this technicality because I know many of the readers, maybe I should edit that in the future. Many of the readers are really stuck in this uh, nightmare of going circle and around and so on and so on. All this is not needed, even if it's from Abbas. Where did Ibn Abbas get it? They say that's like marfu. How do you know it's marfu? If it's from the Messenger of Allah, Ibn Abbas would have said it. He would have screamed on the top of his head to have this information from the Messenger of Allah. There's no way it can be from there. So, was Ibn Abbas there 7,000 years ago? It's impossible. Where he got it? For some maybe people of the book, for some historian at his time, people having certain stories and so on, and history and books and references. And sometimes you think this sounds reasonable. It looks like the reasonable tafsir of the ayah, and you take it. And Ibn Abbas, like any other mujtahid, can do that. So remove that from your head that Ibn Abbas an authority as if he's getting from revelation. Even his explanation is not ma'soom. In most of the cases, his explanation is one of the best, no doubt about that, but not necessarily everyone, up to the last dot. Okay, so that's what enough knowledge for this, but I did it so that nobody will come and open his mouth. You can fill his mouth. So we have these two nations. And additionally, you see what the Qatada said is actually always Ibn Abbas. For Qatada, they were the idols in the time of Nuh, and they inherited, went to the Arabs. Okay, that's a point of view. In the case of Ibn Abbas, all we conclude from the ayah that they must be pious people because he understood that is don't leave this, don't leave this. But he misunderstood because, as we have explained, the ayah says clearly that Nuh told the complaint of Allah that they said, do not leave your idols and do not leave, repeated word leave, these 5 names. And our interpretation that they will chieftains and well-known tyrants and so on of their time, that's the best explanation. Later on, they were then promoted, like most times, deities are promoted from kings and tyrants. In popular tongue and so on until became deities of the Arabs. That's the best explanation according to the ayah. So neither Ibn Abbas nor Qatada. It flow with the ayah, this one flow with the ayah the best and explain all the problems and clarify it. And we mentioned that when we discussed. But let's carry on that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So where is this narration? It is absent, it doesn't exist. Compounding this is the testimony of Hisham ibn Yusuf. He said that what Ibn Jurayd had from Ata ibn Abi Rabah in terms of tafsir was limited to Surah Baqarah and Surah Imran at the most, which is what the faqih would need, and certainly not as far as up to or including Surah Nuh. Ata ibn Abi Rabah is foremost a faqih, not a man from tafsir.
Yeah.
Hence, there is no weight to any argument that this could have been heard or mentioned under a different subject other than tafsir. Neither does it hold any plausibility. The attribution of blame or confusion to the Sheikh of al-Bukhari, Ali ibn al-Madini, is another clear error, bordering on obstinacy. There is no necessity of reason nor Sharia requiring al-Bukhari to know everything relating to ilal from Ali ibn al-Madini. It is possible that Ali ibn
al-Madini is his Sheikh in ilal, and most his ilal are taken from Ali ibn al-Madini, but not all of it. Yeah.
It is possible that Ali ibn al-Madini may have compiled the book after al-Bukhari journeyed in search of knowledge. Furthermore, it is noted that the quote of al-Hafiz ibn Hajar contains an exaggeration to present the matter as being what it is not. Lastly, the claim that if this were not the case, al-Bukhari would have included a statement upon this in the book of Tafsir. Yet this imposes on al-Bukhari something that he didn't commit to. His work is entitled Al-Jami' al-Sahih al-Mukhtasar, and the book of Tafsir in Sahih al-Bukhari is not a compendium of Tafsir, but a very concise one.
No, just few ayat here and there. That's it. Not very much of anything real. Very little. There's not a book of Tafsir in the Tafsir like Tafsir Abd-Razzaq, like a Tafsir this and that, Tafsir ibn Abbas. No, it's not of that. It's just few ayats, selected ayats, which Bukhari thought he found good isnad for them, and he put them in the book of Tafsir. The chapters. At that time, the book was divided in books, like divisions, and the division called Tafsir. There's something about Salah, something about how revelation started, something like that. And in that, only few ayat addressed and few explanations. Okay, carry on.
If al-Hafiz had reviewed the matter of Tafsir, verse by verse, he might have found that this particular version doesn't provide greater information for other specific areas. Alternatively, al-Bukhari may have lent towards one tafsir as opposed to another. In fact, al-Hafiz provides an echo of this in Fath al-Bari, where he says, except how could that be concealed from al-Bukhari, given his strictness in the conditions of continuous reporting, relying mostly upon Ali ibn al-Madini in relation to the
Madini.
In relation to the ilal. His sheikh was studious, and he is the one who drew attention to the story. What supports this is that he did not write about the sourcing in this copy regarding what is mentioned for the isnad in two places, the other in relation to nikah. If the matter was concealed to him, more so the reason to take it out, because from the apparent it appears it conforms to his conditions. Suffice here.
This is just a technical discussion, actually, but okay, maybe in the next edition we'll weed that out, possibly, or some of it, because it serves no purpose. I should have gone directly, but at that time I knew that most reader will be and most people will be stuck with Bukhari, Hadith, and so on. Hadith is taking their mind completely, and they don't even bother going back to the ayah, which is a matter of subject. If they went there and looked carefully, it's clear when they say, don't leave your goods and don't leave though, and so on, so on, so on. So how can this be pious people at this time? How can the mushrikeen tell each other, don't leave your goods and don't leave these 5 names? It can't be pious people. It must be, if they are not idols or deities, special deities, which is a weak point of view, there must be something like leaders who are tyrannical and controlling everything, something like that. That makes sense. And the moment you see that point, all of these tafsir just disappear and prove themselves to be nothing. Okay, carry on.
So Iqbal raised his hand. Far away, bruv.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Sheikh, Jazakallah khairan for the clarification on the route of the Ali ibn Madini, and of course the claim that it's possible that Ibn Jurayj rahmatullah alayhi may have heard it from both Ata ibn Abi Rabah and Ata al-Khurasani. But there's something very important to stress here, Sheikh, that in I believe, if I'm correct, in the book of Atraf al-Sahihain, Abi Mas'ud al-Damashqi, and it's important because it kind of rules out Ata ibn Abi Rabah, that one of the narrator in the same isnad, because Bukhari is taking it from Ibrahim bin Musa, who takes it from Hisham, and Hisham bin Yusuf al-Sanani, he himself has told someone else that the person in this chain is not Ata ibn Abi Rabah, it is Asa al-Khurasani, and he said, because we received so many narrations from him, we became very tired to actually write Ata al-Khurasani. So we summarized that by saying Ata. And the reason, because there is a principle, if the word Ata is mentioned, it's always Ata ibn Abi Rabah. And if it's someone else, then they write the full kunya, such as Ata al-Khurasani or Ata ibn Yasar. But in this case, because he said we became so tired, and this is none other than Hisham bin Yusuf al-Sanani himself. He has told someone else that this person in the chain above us is not Ata ibn Abi Rabah, it's Ata al-Khurasani. So the case from this route, it's completely closed. And Sheikh, would you also stress on this point and agree that the matan itself is a little bit problematic, because the matan says
leave the matan, but that's already clarified the things. That's clarified the things.
Perfect.
But this narration, did not reach to the Bukhari. That's it. So he thought, because standard-wise, when Ibn Jarir talk about Ata, he means usually Ata ibn Abi Rabah, his master sheikh. And Ibn Jarir narrating from Ata ibn Abi Rabah is the top of the narration from Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Everyone agrees with that. That's like a standard authority. So in that isnad, he received it without al-Khurasani because of the mistakes or the shortcoming of Hisham bin Yusuf and the others when they attended Ibn Jarir's class about tafsir. And then all of it, Ibn Jarir said, Ata al-Khurasani said, then we got fed up. We read Ata. We know it's the Khurasani. We know for sure it's the Khurasani. But
absolutely,
because the person, exactly.
Because the person above Imam Bukhari he certainly knows more about the isnad than Imam Bukhari. So if he
definitely.
himself says that the person above is not Ata ibn Abi Rabah, then clearly it's a
Exactly.
case closed.
Definitely. But I said all this technicality is really for secondary meaning, because the fundamental point is that even if it's from Ibn Abbas, where did Ibn Abbas get it from? That's it. Is it from Wahi? No. Definitely Ibn Abbas was not living. Ibn Hazm, in one of his comments, they say, we know that I think Anas ibn Malik was not living at the time of Nuh. But someone narrated something of Anas ibn Malik from Nuh. Say Anas ibn Malik did not reach the time of Nuh. So come on, people. As Anas ibn Malik said it, meaning he got Wahi. We don't know who he'll get. Whatever story he received. And we know that he's not infallible. He's not a prophet. Other than it's nothing. It's just a story. Yeah. You see the point? So that's the more important point. But the technicality need to be addressed, because the moment it's Bukhari, idol worship started. That's it. Idol worship started. That's it.
It's a hadith mawquf.
مقطوع in 2 points. مقطوع between Ibn Jurayj and Ata al-Khurasani, because he got a book of Ata al-Khurasani from his son Uthman, which is weak. And then Ata al-Khurasani himself is almost certain that he never reached the time of Ibn Abbas. He didn't get anything from Ibn Abbas. So age-wise, it looks because Ata al-Khurasani died at 130 something. And Ibn Abbas died at 68. We know that for sure, when he was in Taif with the conflict with Ben Zubayr. So if you mean that, then any possibility for Ata al-Khurasani to hear from Ibn Abbas, meaning he must have been born like 50 at least. So he's 18 years old. 50 meaning he has passed over 80 years, high age, but never reported, because anyone who passed 80 and so on is usually noted in the narration, because most narrators 60, 70, 60, 70, like the famous hadith. The one who longer than that are known and recorded as such. So it is very remote in every respect. So,
yeah. Is that due to reliability of memory? To carry out that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. Yet this imposes, if al-Hafiz had reviewed the matter verse by verse, he would have found that this particular version doesn't provide greater information for other specific areas. Alternatively, al-Bukhari may have lent towards one tafsir as opposed to another. In fact, al-Hafiz provides an echo of this in Fath al-Bari, where he says, except how could that be concealed from al-Bukhari, given his strictness in the conditions of continuous reporting, relying mostly upon Ali ibn al-Madini in relation to Ilal. His sheikh was studious, and he's the one who drew attention to the story. What supports this is that he did not write about the sourcing in this copy. Regarding what is mentioned for the isnad in 2 places, the other in relation to nikah, if the matter was concealed to him, more so, there's reason to take it out, because from the apparent it appears to conform to his conditions. Suffice here is to provide the words of Ibn al-Aini as he writes in Umdat al-Qari Sharh Sahih al-Bukhari. And it was said regarding the support of al-Bukhari in this matter, it is specific to Ibn Jurayj from both Ata al-Khurasani and Ata ibn Abi Rabah, and that it is not hidden from al-Bukhari, given his strictness upon the conditions underpinning continuity of transmissions and the reliance he placed upon it. He did not often mention the narration. Rather, he only mentioned it with this isnad in 2 instances. This and another concerning marriage. If it were hidden from him, he would have mentioned it more often, because its apparent meaning is in line with its condition. I say
the same defense essentially.
I say fihi nadhr, his strictness in the conditions for the connectivity of the channel does not necessitate that it is not a matter concealed from him originally. Glory be to him, of which nothing is concealed. What strengthens the argument for the invalidity of making the attribution of Afar to Ata ibn Abi Rabah in this asar, which al-Bukhari cited, is confirmation that the ruling to be applied here is the narrative is in fact broken, and this is actually not from Ibn Abbas. He is innocent from the attribution made in this narrative. There are series of additional points that will further substantiate this argument. Among them are the following. Firstly, the inappropriate use of the phrasing within the narration, the names of righteous men from the people of Noah, which does not accord with the eloquence and linguistic accuracy for which Ibn Abbas is renowned, for let alone the preservation and astute memory of Ata ibn Abi Rabah. It would have been more appropriate to say, for example, the names of righteous men that were before the time of Nuh, or the names of righteous men from the companions of the Prophet who had existed before Nuh, as it was mentioned in another pathway of the same hadith, albeit even if da'if or batil. That will be mentioned shortly. Similarly, the other stories which resemble these and the alternate channels which mention men or asnam after Adam or from the children of Adam, or men or asnam after Nuh. Internet discussions, both the earlier scholars as well as those contemporary have queried the form that this has taken. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Uthaymeen touched upon this in his Sharh Qasf al-Shubahat, even if tentatively. He wrote, and this tafsir raises a problem here, a problem where he may be pleased with him, says, these are the names of righteous men from the people of Nuh. The apparent meaning of the Quran that it is before Nuh. After mentioning the verse,
as I said, the Quran is clear. They don't leave them, don't leave them. So they cannot be pious men from Noah. No way. If you read just it cannot be pious men from time of Noah. Either pious before and was elevated to divinity before that, or some elevation later of tyrants in the time of Noah. That's the only. And the second explanation is that we discussed earlier. So even Uthaymeen being classical and limited, notice this point. Yeah.
After mentioning the verse in the surah, he continues, the apparent meaning of the verse is that the people of Nuh used to worship them, and Nuh censored them regarding that. The context of the verse indicates that...
Now, again, not even the apparent meaning, but that's what, at first sight, don't leave your idols and don't leave these 5 names. And what comes in people's mind is there's 5 important idols at that time. It didn't come in anybody's mind that may be leaders and chieftains, because it doesn't fit in the image that people have in their mind about time of Noah, because they have a false image in very aspects. So that's where the confusion came. But we'll come to that.
The context of the verse indicates what Ibn Abbas mentioned, except that the apparent context suggests that these righteous people existed before Nuh, peace be upon him, and Allah knows best. Responses to objections of this sort are generally weak, tending to resort to figurative interpretation as a means to escape from the truth. It is permissible to say that a man or men from the people of a certain individual, even if they existed before him. This was claimed by one so-called Abu Umar al-Samarkandi in response to an objection raised by Abu al-Walid in a discussion for Multaqa Ahlul Hadith.
Yeah.
He wrote, there is no valid objection and Allah knows best between the ayah and the athar. This is because it is possible that the man or men are from the people of a certain person, even if they existed before him. As for the athar transmitted from Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, he says in it, from the people of Nuh. He doesn't say before Nuh. Strangely, Abu al-Walid himself referred to the break in the hadith, and here he said, note, this athar is subject to a break in transmission between Ata and Ibn Abbas. This is because the Ata, which is mentioned in Ata al-Khurasani, which is correct. Likewise, Ibn Jurayj did not hear tafsir from Ata al-Khurasani, but rather took it from his son. He is Uthman. Ibn Hajar, may Allah have mercy upon him, attempted to address this issue in a manner which is not widely accepted. See Fath al-Bar, Volume 8, Al-Bari, Volume 8.
Yeah.
The response was skillful, excellent, in response to the question about why al-Bukhari included the Athar in his collection of Sahih, despite its broken channel. The brother Muhammad ibn al-Amin, may Allah grant him success, remarked, why did al-Bukhari include the Athar in his collection of Sahih despite its broken chain? And he could have remarked upon the matter. The response was al-Bukhari included it because he saw it as being Sahih.
Yeah.
Then he said,
I was thinking it's Ata ibn Abi Rabah. That's what I thought of the Bukhari. Yeah, that's it.
Then he said, yet there is a problem as to whether he can assure ourselves as to whether Ibn Abbas has taken it from an Israeliyat story or not, and Allah knows best. He responded, perhaps you mean that this Athar is also narrated by Muhammad ibn Ka'b in a similar manner as mentioned by As-Suyuti in Dur al-Manthur. if that is the case, then it is possible that Muhammad is the one who narrated it from Ibn Abbas, and this possibility is stronger. However, if I have misunderstood your question, please clarify it. May Allah bless you. What is your opinion on what Ibn Hajar narrated from Ali ibn Madini and Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qahtani?
And that's the discussion of these guys. They waste all their life in discussing petty things like that and then miss the main thing anyway.
Regarding this hadith.
Mhm.
So you basically included a transcript of this back and forth then?
Yeah. Just skip it. It's just waste of it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So if anyone wants to review it, you're more than welcome. That's on page 492.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's another one. It goes down to.
That's 492 in the printed book.
In the printed book, yeah.
Yeah. Always say, because we have the non-printed, the PDF is different arrangement. Yeah. Okay.
Second, the channel of this. So this, I can skip this, but the second, the channel of narration from Ali ibn Abi Talha from Ibn Abbas regarding the verse upon which he said that the Islam that was worshipped during the era of Nuh is short and concise only to those words, as has been outlined in Tafsir by At-Tabari, the Isnad being Ali narrated to us, Abu Salih narrated to us, Muawiyah narrated to me from Ali from Ibn Abbas. It is Sahih as per al-Masbur min al-Tafsir bil-Ma'thur. It is cited by At-Tabari with a good isnad from Ali ibn Abi Talha from Ibn Abbas. Moreover, the majority of the scholars concur that this is better, because even though Ali ibn Abi Talha did not hear from Ibn Abbas, he only narrates what he heard from Mujahid and al-Qasim ibn Muhammad.
But there's a problem also that's the general statement, because he said what I have is from these two, but does not exclude that he had something from Muhammad ibn Ka'b and other people. So we are back to the same problem. That a person like Ali ibn Abi Talha, who is nobody doubt his thiqa and so on, but he's not as comprehensive as Ibn Jurayj. Ibn Jurayj say, I got from Ata ibn Abi Rah only tafsir some ayats from Baqarah and Al-Imran. Ibn Jurayj is another category. Then we can say, yeah, he did not get anything more than that. Because the man is so comprehensive and such a memorizer, is a beast. Ali ibn Abi Talha is just a good narrator, having books. So most things, when they ask you, where did you get that? You didn't meet with Abbas, definitely, age-wise. Say, no, I didn't meet it, but I took it from Mujahid and from Qasim, al-Qasim bin Muhammad or something like that I got from. Does not mean that he did not get few things from other people, but he is not one present in his mind at that moment. You see the point? So even that is, you cannot really assume automatically when Ali ibn Abi Talha narrates something from Abbas without intermediary, that the intermediary is necessarily either Mujahid, who is a thiqa, an authority, and the Thani, what's the name of it? Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, I think. Just go a line before.
Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad.
Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad is not necessarily like that. If it was a beast like Ibn Jurayj, they're going to say, oh, yeah, he knows what he's saying. He knows everyone dot by dot. But he's not from this category. He may hear few bits and pieces from another narrators, from other weak ones, from other people who take liberty with Israelis and so on, and he thought that's from Ibn Abbas. That's all possible. For Malak Ali ibn Abi Talha, it's very less possible, almost zero in the case of someone like Ibn Jurayj. Okay, so that's again this point. So even this better, but it still is not an authority, and almost certainly that's one of the few things which Ali ibn Abi Talha had, who did not get from these two authorities. Or these two authorities did not get it. He assumed it's from Ibn Abbas, but they narrate sometimes from another source. Like when in the story of the Lat, you see when Mujahid has narrations, he mentioned clearly he got it from where else, not from Ibn Abbas. We know that. We discussed that in the Lat. So all of this making assumption, people imagine something and project it in the reality. Instead of looking what's the reality in front of me, the reality is Ali ibn Abi Talha did not reach Ibn Abbas. The intermediary, most of the time, are these good ones? Yeah, maybe, but that's a probability, but it does not make things sufficiently beyond reasonable doubt, at least. It's not. So skip it. Okay? I'm discussing that more details further because most people listening are Shabab, are more technically oriented. The general public will have no benefit from that. Just the general statement at the end, which will bring, it sets everything clearly. Okay, carry on.
As has been outlined in Jami' al-Tahsil, Duhaim said he did not hear tafsir from Ibn Abbas. Abu Hatim said Ali ibn Abi Talha from Ibn Abbas is mursal, but he narrates from Mujahid and al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, mentioned by our Shaykh al-Midhi in at-Tahdhib, that he narrates from Qab ibn Malik, and that is also mursal. The clear absence of any narrative by way of Ali ibn Abi Talha concerning the story of the righteous men from the people of Nuh or before him, and that this narration is succinctly limited to the phrase, "This is the Asnam that was worshipped during the era of Nuh," in his great work of tafsir, provides great cogent evidence for what we have set out previously. Namely, that the claim of attribution of Ata being Ata ibn Abi Rabah and not Ata al-Khurasani is quite clearly wrong, and Ibn Abbas himself is absolved from any attribution to this.
Yeah.
Third, what we said regarding the channel of narration from Ali ibn Abi Talha from Ibn Abbas also applies to his channel of narration by way of Ad-Dahak ibn Mudahim. Indeed, he is known to take the tafsir from Ibn Abbas either directly or from Sa'id ibn Jubair. When mention of the verse concerning the great deluge occurs, his statements are concise. This is the Asnam that was worshipped during the era of Nuh, and it is the gods that existed in Yemen, as mentioned by Tabari in his tafsir.
Yeah.
Fourth,
all of them stuck with that, which is the apparent direct meaning of the ayah. And they missed the point that there's maybe tyrants and tyrannical leaders at the time of Nuh, which is the correct interpretation as we have developed earlier. Last. Yeah. Okay. Carry on.
Fourth, as it has been cited in Ithaf al-Dha'ir wa Itraf al-Qayyim lil-Tha'ir by Abu Yaman ibn Asakir, Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad reported to us in writing, may Allah have mercy upon him. Abu Tahir al-Hafiz narrated to us, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahid ibn Abdul Aziz reported to us, Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Amr reported to us, Muhammad ibn Yaqub ibn Ishaq reported to us, Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Umar narrated to us, Al-Abbas ibn Abdullah narrated to us, Abu al-Mughira narrated to us, Ismail ibn Ayash narrated to us, Ibn Jurayj narrated to me from Ikramah from Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, in relation to the saying of Allah the Mighty and Sublime, and do not renounce Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uq or Nasr. He said, these are the names of righteous men from the companions of prophets that were before Nuh. He said, when they perished, the shayateen inspired their awliya to set up stone monuments.
The famous story which we will address. Yeah.
To set up stone monuments within their council gatherings, calling them by their names to remind them of them. He said they acted upon this, but they only worshipped when they had perished, until those following them had to perish, and the study of knowledge receded, they were worshipped. He said Wad was to Kalb at Dumat al-Jundal.
And that's the situation at the advent of Islam. We know the situation. Everything is in Yemen except Dumat al-Jundal, Kalb. But Kalb itself had that from their Yemeni time, because Kalb originated from Yemen also, and they immigrated there. So that's all Yemeni things, Yemeni deities. Yeah.
Okay, I script that a little bit then. However, despite being from the well-renowned scholars that are thiqah and hafid, Ibn Jurayj did not meet Ikramah, nor did he hear from him. That much is confirmed from Jami' at-Tahsil. Ali ibn Madini mentioned that he did not meet a single companion, and he also said that Ibn Jurayj did not hear from al-Mutallib ibn Abdullah ibn Hantab. He said he used to take his hadith from Abu Yahya. Ibn al-Madini further mentioned about the students of Ibn Abbas that he said, meaning that Ibn Jurayj didn't meet Jabir ibn Zayd, nor Ikramah, nor Sa'id ibn Jubair. And Ibn Junayd said, I asked Yahya ibn Ma'in whether Ibn Jurayj heard from Mujahid. He said, in one or two letters of reading, but nothing heard other than that, and like al-Burdaji and other than him, etc. Despite his accolades, Ibn Jurayj is considered as being a mudallis, with having the worst of tadlis, as he is described by Imam ad-Daraqutni. The evilest of tadlis is the tadlis of Ibn Jurayj, for he has ugly tadlis, which is only used when from a majruh. Majruh, what's that definition?
Someone who's injured. The scholar said that he's weak or
from Jarama.
Okay. Jarah. Someone who's injured. That's an indication someone who is no good report about him exists. Majruh.
That is concluded that Ibn Jurayj must have taken this from a man, narrator, who is majhul, majruh. Accordingly, it is highly likely that the hadith of al-Bukhari is from Ata al-Khurasani, who in turn has taken it from al-Majhul Majruh by itself. He trusted him and believed him, in turn attributing it to being from Ibn Abbas. Or it could be from the acts of his son Uthman ibn Ata al-Khurasani, who included him in his father's book.
Yeah.
This is if the isnad from Abu Yaman ibn Asakir to Ismail ibn Ayash is regarded as being reliable. However, it is not because the narrator Muhammad ibn Yaqub ibn Ishaq is Muhammad ibn Yaqub ibn Ishaq al-Qasib, and he has an entry in Tarikh Baghdad. Muhammad ibn Yaqub ibn Ishaq al-Qasib narrates from his brother Ahmad and from Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Umar al-Yamani. Abu Hafs ibn Shaheen narrated from him. It is known that he narrates from Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Umar ibn Yunus al-Hanafi al-Yamani, resident of Baghdad. This narrator, though, has many manakir, plural munkar, disclaimed reports, and other strange things. He has been accused of fabricating and stealing a hadith, as it has been mentioned in Tarikh Baghdad, Tabaqat Isfahan, Lisan al-Mizan, and in al-Khasaf al-Hafiz.
So the Isnad ibn Asakir is having other diseases also, not only that. Yeah, so
it is not unlikely that he may have stolen the matan of al-Bukhari and placed it into this Isnad in an effort to enhance it. Despite that, he did not dare seek to make the attribution for this to Ata ibn Abi Rabah, but instead did so to make it appear from Ikramah, but in doing so rendered this invalid, unreliable, and fallen. One shouldn't be surprised by this.
Yeah, carry on.
The one who has power over all things, encompassing all with knowledge, and mighty and sublime, has emphatically said, "Indeed, we have revealed the zikr, and indeed are its preserver."
Anyone fabricates something, Allah will put some mark in that isnad or somewhere else to exploit that. That's part of the protection of dhikr, but they need you to do the work to be comprehensive. Concerning a hadith, concerning Quran, we have a script. We have the original documents in our hand anyway. So that's another type of protection there. Here, the protection is that you have to do some solid work. Going out from the fundamental rule, which has been ignored in history, is that Quran first. And then everything else has to fit there and fit properly. And if you do that properly, many of these hadith would not even pass. You don't need to stand. That's contradictory. This ayah is not takhsis, it's not like that. Although some people may tune it this way, so that hadith should be struck right away. But that's unfortunately was not done. And that's the reason so many errors in fiqh and in aqidah and so on developed because of this. And even if they refer to the Quran, they refer to ayah here, a part of ayah there, and that's it. That's not referring to the Quran. That's not what the Quran says. You have to do tadabbur al-Quran, not tadabbur ayah or half an ayah. Okay? So, carry on.
This is criticism, not censure. Despite what has been, that's the next section. Despite what has been outlined thus far, this is not a blemish or attack on Imam al-Bukhari. Indeed, he was truly a mountain of a hafiz, the Imam of the temporal world of his time. If he made a mistake or had a minor delusion, that is not a wholesale discreditation of him.
Yeah, exactly.
For he was not infallible. Various waham that he had were evident in his work entitled Kitab At Tawheed al-Kabir, as has been long identified, for example, by Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi in his work Mawadih Awham al-Jamah wa Tafriq. Contained within a seminal book, he took pains to refute many of the ignorant who claimed knowledge and denied such research and investigation with solid arguments. We mention this to highlight the depth of his knowledge and his keenness in addressing such matters. He wrote in the book titled At-Tarikh by Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, there are several instances which provide corroboration to what Abu Hassan ad-Daraqutni mentioned where
Yeah.
he combined two things into one and one thing into two, and so on and so forth. Such instances are mentioned by the will of Allah, the Almighty, clarifying the intended meanings and bringing them closer to our belief and supporting our claims with evidence. His followers, including those who are similar, who share similar misconceptions, except for al-Bukhari in this regard, also follow this path. We discuss the
Yeah.
differences among scholars regarding these matters and identify who is closer to the correct position in what they claim. Then we proceed to outline the structure of this book and present it in a concise manner, properly organized by chapter. Some
You
who
see,
read this book,
in time of Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, idolization was progressed very much. So he needed to write this long discussion. We are not undermining al-Bukhari. We are not doing that, but we're clarifying. We're doing scholarly work. He needed this long apology at that time. And Al-Khatib, I think, died 450 Hijri. What about later time? Oh, it's an idol there. Nobody, if you come close to it, people will scream at you.
some who read this work, after reviewing what we have written, may harbor a grievance towards us with negative assumptions. They may, in fact, perceive that the intention is to criticize those who come before us, to expose the faults of our esteemed scholars of the Salaf. How could that be when we have mentioned them, benefited from them, from their radiant knowledge, following in their footsteps, and clearly depicted their teachings? We have taken inspiration from their noble path, distancing ourselves from ignorance. There is no comparison between them and us except as mentioned by Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Ahmad ibn Umar al-Muqri, reported to us, Abu Tahir Abdul Wahid ibn Umar ibn Muhammad Abdul Wahid ibn Umar ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Hisham reported to us, Muhammad ibn al-Abbas al-Yazidi narrated to us, al-Rayashi narrated to us from al-Asami'i. He said, Abu Amr said, we are but nothing when compared to those preceding us, like the tip of a date palm amidst the long roots.
The idolization, the past one are bigger, and the same idolization, yeah.
When Allah the Almighty appointed leaders and guides for each community, it became incumbent upon the seekers of guidance to follow their clear signs, and for those who uphold the truth to follow in their footsteps. Those blessed with the ability to research, comprehend, and discern in the field of knowledge have a duty to elucidate what has been neglected and rectify what has been overlooked. For they are not infallible and immune from error, nor are they free from occasional lapses. This is the right of the scholar upon the learner and the obligation of the latter to the former. It is hoped that those who come across our book, The History of Medina, and the accounts of its narrators, including the mention of its scholars unrelated to its inhabitants, will consider our excuses. We have presented it in it the virtues and merits of al-Bukhari, dispelling any doubts about our intentions and addressing any accusations of tampering with his work, if Allah the Almighty so wills.
So that's all the Khatib, all these apology, just because of the idolization is progressing. Even the rule he mentioned that those leaders who Allah appointed on, we have to follow their steps. Yeah, if you have an evidence that Allah appointed them, do you know that Allah appointed Bukhari to be the best narrator of the Ummah? You don't know. You're just speculating. Just getting your imagination, attributing that even worse to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do you know that? We know the prophets with their evidence of prophethood. That's all what we know. But otherwise not. So you see imagination, interwoven other imagination, leading people to put such general statement as general philosophical things in such a way that it leads to disaster. Yeah. So carry on. So you see all of that because of this, all that wavering and so on. But it's good. One positive aspect of Al-Albani, despite all shortcomings, is that he had the courage to break that. He said so many things the earlier have left for us the later want to analyze and do. He dared to break this, and thus opening the matter for hadith, etc., etc. He broke this idolization. He broke this idolization without really breaking it as harshly as it should be. Like, for example, he mentioned about the Malik is doing tadlis al-taswiyah, that he does not drop his sheikh, but the sheikh of the sheikh, if he does it like him. And then he mentioned, and Malik is doing that plenty. He did not continue say, and the same Malik with the Hafiz called رأس المتقنين وإلى آخره. He should not be classified like that, because this act reduce your rank from أهل التثبت. There's no way to accept it. But people say, okay, is it only from Thawr from Ikrimah? Because somehow he didn't like Ikrimah. No, he made at least an important, I think Bahrat is having the draft about wavering of the hadith al-Qada al-Qadar. There's a narration, it's not a hadith, it's from Umar. Umar is a very important authority. He's like a big idol for many people, in which he dropped the man there who show this narration is definitely fabricated, but he dropped him. And this is very grave. Not his sheikh, the sheikh of his sheikh. And the other channels show that this man exists, how he's majhul and most likely questionable and possibly fabricated. Putting Umar like in the camp of the fatalists or something like that. That's in the collection, which is we have posted already. So it's very grave. But nobody dare say, oh, this show that what the people think about Malik is all just in a dream world. The reality is completely different. The reality is definitely completely different. But even Albani did not dare come here. We have come to that already. We're getting there, inshallah. Because we gave up this idolization, khalas, and we do now the cross-referencing and so on. And doing this, inshallah, thoroughly. And that's the reason I made it that expanded. So nobody can come and over his mouth. Oh, we don't know about Ilal and so on. No, we know better than you. But here it is. If you have more, bring it.
Okay, I'm going to finish this section until the next section, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay. One must conclude that the narratives which are munqati and mursal narratives, together with fabrication and outright lies, should be consigned to the dustbin of history. Yeah. They were outlined only to demonstrate the corruption that has befogged the minds from the sect of Wahhabism, leading to not only their intellectual bankruptcy, but also their profound misguidance doctrinally.
Mm-hmm.
With their excessive extremism coupled with deviant practices, they have waged war for too long against the Muslim Ummah.
Mm-hmm.
If it is blindly assumed that the narration purported from Ibn Abbas is textually transmitted by Tawatur, it doesn't change the situation. Even if it was the case, which it isn't, it is not a binding proof, because a single companion is not considered infallible in his statements, opinions, or acts. There is no difference between the tafsir or other than that.
Because they put a rule, say the tafsir of Sahabi has the ruling of marfu', must be somehow marfu'. Why? Who told you it must be marfu'? Especially Ibn Abbas, because he's Allahumma alimhu ta'wil. Yeah, alimhu ta'wil. There's no say make him infallible and substitute the Prophet after he passes away. Alimhu ta'wil. So he become a first class mu'awwil, but then not infallible again. So all it says is going in a circle which never ends. The same which led Jews and Christians to be destroyed. But in our case, alhamdulillah, the Quran is there, and the total narration of the hadith internally can cross-reference and correct itself and expose the fallacies and so on. But it needs hard work in the case of hadith, which is sometimes it's worth. In this one, it's not even worth, I say. Even by Tawatur from Abbas. From here goes it. Maybe it's an Israeliyat, maybe it's some kind of Aramaic story or something like that. And it sounds reasonable, sounds to fit with the ayah somehow for Ibn Abbas. And that's the best what he had. He did his ijtihad. That's it. What we know now, that's not correct. Okay? So that's it. Okay. Carry on.
There is no difference between tafsir or other than that, nor is there any real meaning to the viewpoint of those who claim that his statement in matters of tafsir holds the ruling of being marfu'. If it is not contradicted that by way of another companion, we would say, bring forth your substantive proof if you are indeed truthful.
Yeah.
Even for this particular story, there are other channels of narration that have emerged that are in basic agreement with some details, yet differ crucially in others. Yeah. Some of these channels of narration have many other additions and are from a group of ulama of the tabi'in, like Urwa ibn Zubair, Muhammad ibn Qais, Ubayd ibn Umair, Ikramah, al-Dhahak, Muhammad ibn al-Baqir, Qatada ibn Ishaq, and other than them. Some have already been mentioned.
Muhammad al-Baqir, مش ibn al-Baqir, Muhammad al-Baqir.
al-Baqir, because it's
The
Ibn
father of
al-Baqir.
Ja'far al-Sadiq, that's the son of Ali ibn Hussein Zain al-Abidin, is one of the Imams of the Ithna Ashar. He's, I think, the fourth Imam, because we have Ali, al-Hassan, al-Hussein, Ali ibn al-Hussein, and al-Baqir is the fifth, and Ja'far is the sixth. Yeah.
Some have already been mentioned, others will be set out shortly. People would circulate these narratives, which were taken from a host of different sources, be that the stories of the Arabs, writings from the people of the book, or even the tales of the Nabateans. If we were to argue on the assumption made earlier that the narrative of Ibn Abbas is credible, it would be of no surprise that he may have heard from these variant sources. With the passage of time, he may well have believed that there was a kernel of truth underpinning these narratives, selecting those he deemed more reliable than articulating them with the best wording and literal accuracy.
But
No
is
one
it an
doubts-
authority? Is a binding authority? No. It's only Quran and well established with certitude hadith or hadith as a binding authority. Anything else could be a point of view, could be ijtihad, could be a lapse of memory in a certain situation. I have many examples of that. We don't need to repeat them.
Mhm.
We have many examples of that. Many examples.
No one doubts that Ibn Abbas was a meticulous and erudite scholar. Maybe towards the end of his life, he expressed a view upon such matters, given that the senior companions, their scholars, the mother of believers, and the esteemed veterans of the campaigns had passed away, leaving only the like of Abdullah ibn Umar and Anas ibn Malik, who were not the leading scholars of tafsir. Thus no one really objected to what Ibn Abbas had said. Even if we were to accept the view of the majority, which suggests that these were the names of deities worshipped by the people of Nuh, that would mean they existed for over 4,000 years before the advent of Islamic mission, or perhaps even much earlier. These names were passed down among the Arabs and other Semitic people until they reached the tribes mentioned by the narrative, predominantly South Arabian Yemeni tribes, through the influence of Ibn Abbas and possibly others, as evident from the text of the Quran, Sahih Hadith, Sirah, as well as other materials. How did such beliefs arrive in such an era that is so remote into the depths of prehistory? Knowledge of such can only be determined by way of transmission that is Sahih. Yet there is no Sahih transmissions, nor is there any wahi that specifically addresses this. The Athar of Ibn Abbas is not marfu' and cannot be construed as wahi.
Exactly.
Stories such as these are nothing more than Israeliyat or Arabian myth, popular
Or
Nabatean.
an ijtihad, because he see the ayah, لا تذرن, okay, meaning the mushrikeen are advising each other, don't listen to Nuh, don't leave your deities for his God, one God allegedly, and don't leave these 5 names. And it looks at first as maybe they seem to be deities. Nobody came in his mind that maybe tyrants at the time of Nuh, or surrounding villages and areas and so on, because the picture about what happened in Nuh is also mutilated by the Old Testament, that the flood covered all the earth is not true. That the only people remaining from the people of Nuh is, does the Quran say, وَجَعَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُ الْبَاقِينَ, from the people of Nuh, all of them got extinct, either by the flood or the believer. They don't have, only Nuh and his offspring continued until Ibrahim and so on, and Hud and Salih most likely. That may be true, but there's not people construct that all humanity after that descend from Nuh, which is again not true, assuming the whole earth was under flood. All assumption based on imaginary stories, and then you build a case for this and this, try to construct something which makes sense. That's it. But some of the assumptions there are false, like many things related to Adam and so on, and casting out of the Jannah. Almost everywhere, with a few exceptions, is that people think it's the Jannah of Akhirah or the Jannah in heaven. It's not. It's a special garden, maybe most likely in High Plain or Abyssinia. That's it. And Adam was created for the earth to start with. So how is the Jannah? What happened in Jannah? It was just a time in which he develops under special care. But he, with the failure, we got, okay, the time of special care, which was originally planned to be much longer than that, is ended by this mistake. Out. That's all that's happened. It's not a Jannah of heaven and so on. When these stories come, people imagine things which are not there. Much of it is because of the khurafat and the fallacies of the Old Testament, which some would go to prophets who give a small story or just headlines, and the people could not be satisfied. The human beings would have to expand the story and have head and tail and make something good for, in our time, good for a movie. That's the human tendency. And then embellished it, and then hear things from pagans and so on, like the floods in Iraq, and joined that and developed these stories in Genesis, which some of it's manifestly contradicting each other. Manifestly. Nobody ever went there and sat and does the job, unfortunately, until modern times. So that's how it has come. That's it, simple. But for that we need to struggle centuries and so on. But maybe humanity was not mature for that. Okay, no problem. I mean, Allah forgive them. They did their ijtihad. But the main problem, if they think that's marfu, the moment you make the statement, you are entering into, starting falling in the abyss. There's no recovery until you get out of this mindset. Only then you get from that mindset. Okay, carry on.
Stories such as these are nothing more than Israelite or Arabian myths, popular Nabatean folklore or the like. The good Imam...
Or deduced from the Old Testament with a bit of beautification and adding things with the Quran indicate and things like that. Or you think the Quran indicate. That's it.
They don't
You find for the scholar discussing how come that Iblis was able to waswasa to Adam without entering Jannah, he's barred from Jannah and so on. All is in their imagination, all in their imaginary world. And they said, oh no, he came as a snake. That's taken the Old Testament. Others say, no, he just do waswasa by far away, sending brain waves, like that. All of this is nothing. That's not the Jannah wa Akhirah, and he was cast from heaven out to be for the rank of the angel. That's all that it means. And they made the story there, and how could Iblis go into Adam is inside the Jannah, and Iblis is cursed before that, and Mu'lu'in when he refused to do sujood. So how to explain that? And they entered the imaginary world of speculation. That's it. But because if you have premises, start with information or things you think is correct information, it's wrong, then you can't conclude anything. You can't conclude good things and bad things. That's the fundamental rule of logic. If the premises are wrong, you can't deduce anything. And the famous story joke of Bertrand Russell say that it's difficult to understand this, that a fallacy, you can't get from fallacy anything. And say, okay, let's assume the wrong thing that's 2 is equal 1. Yeah. So you agree, we know it is false, but assume it is true. If that's so, the Pope and myself are 2 different persons, but because 2 is equal 1, I am the Pope. But he's making a joke about this guy. So if the premise is false, you can deduce from it anything, truth and falsehood. That's it. But if the premise is true, only true can be deduced from it. And that's the reason we can use this word is the reduction and absurdum. Assume the opposite and then show a contradiction. But that's only if the premises are established already to be true. But if the premises themselves assumed to be true, they are not, then you can deduce any nonsense. Easy, no problem. Okay.
The good Imam Qatada seemed to readily acknowledge this, confining himself only to the first part of the hadith, purportedly to be from Ibn Abbas.
Because Qatada is quite sharp, and he is a beast in memorization, which was blunt. He's a beast in memorization and quite rational in many aspects. And he saw nothing there can be you hold with your hand. All that he said, these are idols of the Arab at that time. This kalb, this dominant and gender, and did not go any other things. And because the ayah at face showed that maybe worship at the time of Nuh, and then the Arab inherited that from the people of Nuh after the flood and so on. That seems to be reasonable history. You can construct in your mind. Doesn't mean there's only in other places who make massive blunders, for example. You see? Okay, carry on.
Okay, brother, want to say something?
Yeah, just a small thing. I just wanted to ask just on epistemology. Is it not that if the premise is true, it doesn't necessitate that the conclusion be true? It just depends. But obviously, it's more like it depends on the reasoning, right? Because you can have a true premise.
If you do the proof correctly and the steps correctly, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously. Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
But if it is false, you can't deduce anything. Like the joke of Bertrand Russell.
as Dahak ibn Zayd and Ali ibn Abi Talha in his generation of Qatada seemed to regularly acknowledge this, confining himself only to the first part of the hadith, purportedly be from Ibn Abbas, as did al-Dahak ibn Zayd and Ali ibn Talha in his channel narration from Ibn Abbas. The second half of the Athar, alleged to be from Ibn Abbas, provides for detail concerning the names purportedly to be from righteous men from the people of Nuh. Yet the level of detail provided is internally inconsistent. It refers to the whisper made by Satan and how this led to monuments being set up. But this can't be determined by eyewitness account, and matters related to the unseen can only be provided for by wahi.
Yeah.
Compounding this is how the narrative ends, by arguing that the monuments made were worshipped after the people had died and knowledge of the original purpose forgotten. But if this was truly forgotten, how was it then rediscovered for the purpose of the narration? The implication for those who unquestionably accept the Athar alleged to be from Ibn Abbas as being akin to Wahi is that this must have been from the Prophet ﷺ, despite not being attributed to him. But Wahi does not contain any inherent contradictions, nor can the claim be advanced of the narrative being raised and attributed to the Prophet when clearly it is not. If the reasoning leading to the blind acceptance of the Athar is not clearly defined, then naturally consideration need to be given to other similar narratives which have similar import.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making the premise that because it's not substantiated, you're effectively opening the doors to other types of
then it becomes you open the door and then everything comes in, every fallacy, every nonsense, until you get to something which is we'll get to some narration about from the Shia and so on. And I comment, so we just need to be add a nice love story to that, and then we make a movie in Hollywood, like Star Wars. It comes later. That's what's so expanded. It's unbelievable, the level of expansion.
Yeah, bit too much imagination there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll call it quits there then. That's page 500. We'll start from By the Rivers of Babylon's Fables and Myths.
That's the end of that section. What is the name of the next section?
By the Rivers of Babylon, Fables and Myths.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's Khalid's title.
Maybe it's hard because I don't remember I did that. Maybe I will check the Arabic, but maybe that's then the other myths then we discussed and the story of this long story about Qabil, Habil, and all these, and how the Satan visited and not visited and so on. And I make some mockery remarks. And the end of the whole story sounds very nice. I said, we need to add a love story to suit in the taste of the 21st and 20th century. And then we have a perfect scenario for an expanded video, for a movie. Much better than Conan the Barbarian and things like that. Or the Vengeance of Thor and all these things.
John Wick Part 5.